Hi, welcome Brightlights to Healers with Humor, a podcast brought to you by Candice, the visionary behind Indiglow Soul, and Shelly, the owner of Finding Your Light. Join us as we explore the intricacies of our healing experiences and share the wisdom we've accumulated along the way. In each episode, we're going to invite you into our intimate conversations where we candidly explore the highs and the lows of our healing experiences. Through our podcast, we want to extend our hands to those navigating their own path of healing, offering a sanctuary of understanding and companionship. Whether you're navigating through the shadows of self-doubt or reveling in the glow of self-discovery, Healers with Humor is there to honor the strength that it takes to heal and celebrate the joys of self-love and growth. Join us on this journey, embracing the beauty of healing and the power of community. Hi, welcome to Healers with Humor, Season 1, Episode 5. Today, we're going to be talking about getting to know yourself during your healing journey. So in Episode 4, we really dug deep into spiritual awakening versus healing journey and really had some epiphanies, I think, for ourselves. But today, let's talk more about healing journeys. So, Candice, what are some of the things that you've created or got into or explored to get to know yourself better, specifically during your healing journey?
So, again, my healing journey started with a lot of pain, physical pain. And so that was really at the core of understanding energy work, which was brand new to me. And so emotion code was probably the forefront of me understanding more about myself. And that really led me to strip away, unpack, whatever the word is that you want to say, all of the energy, emotions that I was carrying for everybody else. And that led me into understanding that I was an empath. And so that was a whole rabbit hole that's really what started the healing journey for me. Cause I think empath, the word gets thrown around a lot. Oh, you're an empath. You're an empath. But I don't know the people, and I certainly didn't really understand what that meant. So I really did a deep dive into being an empath and how that impacted me, how I was absorbing, right, everything around me. And it also led me to 3 really key pieces of really aha moments and epiphanies around I was a codependent, I lacked boundaries, and I was a people pleaser. If you had asked me any of that before, I would have said no to all of those things. But as I unpacked all of them, I very clearly was all of them. And I've really worked over the last number of years to understand all of those topics more deeply, how they've impacted me personally. And along that vein, there's been a lot of other therapies, right, that have gone alongside. Once you understand those 3 concepts, then some other doors unlock for you to then realize how those things came up or impacted you. Especially for me, a lot of my work was for inner child. So certain ages, certain things happening, I've talked about it before, repressed trauma. Again, didn't know it was a thing. So going back to certain ages, right, where certain things happened that I needed to not necessarily remember, but my body needed to unpack them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think inner child healing is a big piece of a healing journey for most people.
Yeah, for sure. What was the biggest part of your healing journey?
It's probably a debate between shadow work and self-love or self-trust.
Yeah.
To me, I think they really ran together. When I think about shadow work, so much of my life I had been called planned and organized and right, Shelly always has it all in her purse, or she knows what it's going to happen a month from now, right? So
Yes.
the biggest piece that I didn't understand in shadow work was really accepting that I could be really messy. I could be really disorganized, or people talk about your ducks all in a row, right? My ducks, I'm not even sure where my ducks were. But there were some areas of my life, like work, right? Again, that look, everyone looking in saw a really
Mhm.
perfect view. That were all of those things planned, organized, exactly how everybody tells you to have it. But
Mhm.
really accepting that part of myself that wasn't together, right? That couldn't hold my emotions together, that might cry at an awkward time,
Mhm.
that might be a mess for a couple days. Loving and getting to know that person, that
Mhm.
side of me, I didn't know I had that side of me.
Mhm.
I didn't know that I had the one that gets a
Yeah.
little bit out of control, right? Or the one
Mhm.
that's not so that's last minute, right? That's not
Yeah.
scheduled.
Because you kept
Um,
yourself so hemmed in, right? That was your environment to
right,
keep yourself so hemmed in to come outside of that.
right. And then that self-love piece, for so long I had asked people, asked myself like, why don't they love me this way? Or why
Mhm.
can't they hear me say this? And the piece that just floored me was realizing these were things I needed to do for myself,
Mhm.
right? I needed to be a trustworthy person for myself and keep my
Mhm.
word, keep my promises.
Yes.
I needed to hear myself. I got to be honest, I was shocked when it turns out that like I wasn't doing what I was asking other people to do.
Mhm.
And that was a huge surprise for me, right? Because I had really put it out on someone
Mhm.
else,
Mhm.
their fault, right?
Mhm.
They can't meet my needs, and I wasn't meeting my own needs. So that was a big surprise for me on my on my journey to get to know myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us feel that way, right? I mean, that's been obviously a big piece of your journey, but I think other people feel that too, right? I definitely was called, the planner and the organizer and all of those things. And yeah, my breakdown allowed me to be messy,
Mm.
right? I don't know that I would have gotten there otherwise. So kudos to you for not having to have the breakdown first.
Yeah, yeah, but I had the divorce, so
That's right. That's right. We all
in
have our own thing.
reality, right, it is a big. I think sometimes it is a big event or a life altering moment, right? A breakdown, a divorce, a
Yes.
loss, losing a job. Those things, right, really tend to ask you to question a lot of things.
Yes. Agreed. So once you understood those things about yourself, right? I'm sure that didn't happen in a minute or 2 days, right? That's been a
Oh,
journey
no.
for you. But in to get there and just in general, what are the types of things that you make sure that you do for yourself, right? So we talk a lot about self-love, showing up for ourselves in a way that other people, can't or won't or don't. What are you doing for yourself to ensure that you stay on the path that you want to be on?
Yeah, so I certainly meditate and journal, and I have been doing that the entire time on the healing journey and spiritual awakening. Those have been huge for me. You're absolutely spot on when I've spent a ton of time on the relationship with myself.
Mhm.
Building trust with myself has been huge. Still
Mm.
working on it daily.
Mm.
But I think, some of the other really key points have been I didn't really, I'll say, have good friends and use my friends
Mm.
before.
Mhm.
So asking for help, being vulnerable,
Mhm.
and having safe friends.
Yeah.
I don't think that right, that I understood the concept. It was somebody that okay, I like to do things with them, but could I be really vulnerable and feel
Mhm.
safe with them, right? So that's something that I've definitely practiced and gotten much better at.
Yes.
The other piece, and I didn't even get into this until probably 3 years ago, but I had an amazing therapist who talked about vertical connection.
Mm.
I have to be honest, I had no clue what that was, but it made a lot of sense to me. So really connecting and grounding with the earth, right? Mother Earth, and then really connecting with source, and the heavens and with healing. And so
Mhm.
more of an up and down connection being really strong. So with
Mm.
myself, with source, with the earth, before really reaching out to right? It being about involving other people, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
relationships or, getting involved in community, really focused on centering and that vertical connection. So those have been really huge for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I do them daily.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you say has been things that have really allowed you to explore who you are and what you're supposed to be doing? Because I know we all talk about purpose and
Mm-hmm.
path.
The path, yes, the elusive path. So for me, it was really about getting to know me, right? So for me, I think it was a lot of inner child work, definitely self-love. I don't think I had a concept of what that really meant. The holistic psychologist talks about reparenting, and that has a lot to do with, boundaries and, codependency and people pleasing. I'm going to show up for myself in a way that other people couldn't show up for me. So similar to what you talked about, just a little, little different. But once I realized I was an empath and went down that rabbit hole and understood truly what that meant, what codependency meant, it taught me that I didn't have what I needed and that I needed to give it to myself. So I needed to show up for myself, to your point, in a way that other people weren't. I needed to create boundaries for myself, and they weren't for other people. They were literally for me, right? I needed to go to bed at 10 o'clock every night. I needed to get up at 7 o'clock every morning. I needed to not work until all hours of the night and, be the person that was there for everybody when nobody was there for me. The people pleasing, right? Showing up to for everyone and everything as a distraction. So once I understood all of those pieces, and again, that wasn't overnight, it took a minute. I also coupled that with some different therapies. So one of the first things that I did is called quantum healing hypnosis therapy. So QHHT, Dolores Cannon is the one who created that. And I've had a wonderful practitioner, highly skilled in that. And that brought me a lot of information for me to mull over. So, a lot of that is supposed to be past life, but it actually brought me into a scene in this life. In that scene, I was alone, which was at the time I didn't really understand, but now as I look back was really telling that I've spent a lot of my life by myself. I didn't have a lot of support. And so QHHT was big. When I had my breakdown, one of the first things that I did, a friend that I had at the time suggested that I do a therapy called internal family systems, IFS. And that's what they consider parts work. And so when we talked about earlier, there's different ages where things happen, right? I had some trauma from, 5 to 15. It wasn't just a one time that something happened. And our parts get exiled. And so you and I have talked about before where I've done some, meditating or whatever, and my nervous system has been a wreck and my 2-year-old is in charge, right?
Oh.
My 2-year-old is at this, right? I call it like the spaceship, and she's at the control panel and she's in this big chair and she's, pressing all the buttons and doing all the things. And I walk in and she's like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "Well, right. Well, I'm here now. I can help." She's like, "You're not helping anybody." And so it's about really understanding and getting to know that 2-year-old, getting them to trust you, right? I had to get some unicorn cotton candy to entice her to let me take control for a little bit. So it's a lot of those exiled parts that we have to get to know and integrate back into us. That was huge. That therapy was super, super helpful for me. And then just within the last year, I did another thing called root cause therapy. So RCT. Again, a very highly skilled practitioner. We actually did it online. And again, very, very helpful. It's almost a timeline technique. It's under light hypnosis. And you go back to the scenes of the root of some of the behaviors and patterns that are plaguing you at the moment. And so that was really helpful. Those are Those are all things that have helped me with my inner child. They've helped me communicate differently. They've helped me show up in relationship differently. Yeah, there's so many different things. And I think what's beautiful about the work that we all do, right? Reiki is a big part. I've done Reiki. I know you're a master Reiki woman. And there's so many different modalities. And I think that's the beauty of this process. Everybody has some sort of trauma, whether it's big T or little t trauma. And my big T might be your little t, right? Depending on our circumstances. And there's so many different ways for us to work through that in a beautiful way, right? It's messy, right? It's hard, but it's also beautiful. And if you're willing to do the work and truly be vulnerable and authentic, it is magic.
When I think about what you said, I think it's life and the experiences that made you. And then the healing journey is understanding who you have become and why.
Yeah.
So as you talk about the different ages, as you're working with your inner child.
Yes.
Right. Your experiences made you who you are today, and you're having to go back and understand them.
Understand it.
The beliefs, the thoughts, the actions, the decision making. And you can make a decision on, is this the best way? Is it the 2-year-old running running the show?
Yeah.
Is that the way that things should be working or not? Right. Or when is it okay for her to do that?
Exactly. Yeah. 2-year-old, not so. Yeah. She's lovely, but not so much.
Yeah. But understanding the why, right?
Yeah. The why.
Why does she feel like she needs to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So many things on this journey. So we talked about, self-love and the work that you've done in the past. Can you share, some of some of the modalities or some of the things that you've worked on that you found helpful with the shadow work that you've talked about doing?
Yeah. So I think, in addition to the self work and shadow work, there's been a lot of inner child for myself too. I think a lot of ego work.
Oof. Yes.
which is which is which is a big subject, right? Why what you've built as protection mechanisms and efforts to protect yourself, but also, thinking about relationships. So I've done a lot of work in relationships, with my parents, my siblings, my spouse, understanding them. And so therapy was obviously a big piece of that. But then when you get into the energy work, or maybe a crossover between therapy and energy work, a lot of hypnosis was really helpful for me to kind of understand a situation being somewhat detached from it. So I could be an onlooker as opposed to engaged.
Yeah.
It also gave me some different perspectives when you're not the character, you're the observer.
Yeah. Yeah. That subconscious work is really powerful.
Yeah. So I really found that helpful when things that were new to me, like anxiety, or I won't say panic attacks, but hyperventilating. Things like Reiki were extremely helpful in calming my system down. Right. So how you breathe and Reiki, extremely helpful. And so those are probably some of the most important that I've used in the healing journey. There's certainly more that I think are helpful in understanding, spiritual and my purpose.
Right.
That a lot of that sometimes really intertwines, right? You go in looking for, I think a lot of those things I started with by looking for entertainment, realizing that they were more about understanding myself and direction and healing.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly as any of those modalities right now, certainly you mentioned I've gotten into Reiki and a couple other things. We both do emotion code.
Yep.
You have body code and belief code, right?
Yeah.
They all really center back into getting to know your own body, what your body's saying.
Yeah.
knowing the self, whether it's codependency, being an empath, things that like not having boundaries and how that affects you, right? All of those things have really helped to kind of say, okay, what's made me who I am, what were healthy things and what were unhealthy, right? Because we all look at people pleasing, I think, as we get rewarded for it. But we never look at what the detriment to ourself is.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I've said this before, but what I truly didn't understand about the people pleasing until, again, probably, 4 or 5 years ago, is I was so concerned with everybody else liking me. I never put stock in, do I actually like these other people?
Cool.
And when you stop and think about it like that, it's a whole different game. It's a whole different, landscape that we talked about earlier. And I spent my entire life just making people like me. And that goes back to the masks that we talked about before, right? Once that dropped, I couldn't make or care about if anybody liked me or not. I needed to do my work for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the one other thing I want to make sure, right? Because I think between the two of us, have hit some of the big pieces of a healing journey. But I think, the other piece that we haven't touched on is how important intuition was, right?
Oh, geez. Yeah.
that, learning to listen to your body, to listen to your intuition, to not follow what always seems logical. That's been huge in both spiritual awakening and healing journey for me.
Yes. Same.
But to help me figure out, right? Is it inner child work? Is it work that I needed to do in relationships? Is it work with self? Right? That intuitive piece, tapping into you, I think that's probably the most helpful work that I've done, because I think all of it would have been harder without it.
Agreed completely. And that, for me, learning emotion code and learning how to muscle test and really hone my intuition that way using a pendulum was huge for me, to your point. And not necessarily just making the logical decision, but what my body wanted. And again, probably just in the last year, somebody, I was trying to make a big decision about something, and they were like, let's not make that big decision right now. Let's ask ourselves how our body feels about it. Or does that feel loving to me right now? And if the answer is no, then you don't do it. And I would never have gotten to that place had I not trusted my intuition or learned how to understand what my intuition was or how it was speaking to me. Yeah. How did you, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but how did you learn to trust your intuition? Because at the beginning, that's hard. You're so used to using the logical mind, bringing the intuition piece in can be difficult for people.
Yeah, I'm gonna laugh at myself here because just this week, someone in a meeting that I was in said, "Oh my God, if Shelly doesn't trust herself," and Shelly is still working on it every day. There are lots of things when I'm working on someone else as an energy healer.
Oh, forget it. Yeah.
I do not second guess
Never.
myself at all. I move right into their body, right? Move right into where I believe the issue is, and have the conversation about what I'm, hearing, seeing, feeling.
Yep.
And frankly, still with myself, sometimes I'm not sure if I'm rigging the board or a little bit losing it, or that's got to still be the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
Is really saying, particularly when it's something that I either want to know or it seems outlandish, or it would be something that I always asked for practical things.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say it now, but I actually used to laugh at people who dreamed. I was like, talk to me about something you're actually going to do.
Yeah.
Right? That I don't understand. I don't understand you people. And the beautiful part is, right, is that I do a lot more dreaming, right? And a lot more asking for big things and
Mhm.
expecting big things than I've ever done my entire life.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's still really hard to be fully in trusting with 2 feet,
Yeah.
even if I've seen magical things. So I think
Mhm.
that the answer is or it's something that I do every day,
Yeah.
right? It's an exercise, just like I think that loving myself every day
Mhm.
is a daily exercise, right? Trusting my intuition and myself is a daily exercise.
Mhm. Yeah. I would say the same. So, yeah. Everybody else I can hone into much more easily. For myself, I question is the information I'm getting real? That's why, again, we talked about it before, but having that trusted network of people, you and I would say, on a daily or weekly basis
Mhm.
are, will you check this for me? Will you check this for me? Am I losing my mind? Does this sound right?
And how many times have we actually been losing our mind,
Yeah,
right? How many times have we been incorrect?
exactly. Not
Right? It's a
many.
good reminder.
Yeah, huge.
Mm. Well, I know that both of us have focused so much on self-love,
Yes.
but I really feel like it's been one of the key parts of your message, the
Mhm.
things that you help people with through emotion code, body code, belief code, and the Akashic records.
Yeah.
But can you share more, or is there anything that you want to tell us more about how that self love really has come to fruition in real life?
Yeah, I would love to. That, again, it's not been an overnight process by any stretch. But for me, we can't talk about self love without first acknowledging the impact of trauma
Mm.
and the early childhood trauma has on you, right? So that's, for me, a key piece of the self love. So even though my trauma is repressed, my body was still holding the emotions, right? And we joke, in emotion code, we have some core emotions that come up all the time, right? And mine's worthless, shame, guilt, right? Those all contributed to lack of self love patterns for me. And those patterns were created so that I could function in this world.
Oh.
But those patterns or behaviors for me, right, were what we talked about earlier: codependency, lack of boundaries, people
Mhm.
pleasing, right? So the concept of self love really wasn't possible for me before I understood those things. And once I was able to do that and I understood what those things were and that I could be safe in my body, that was a big piece for me, right?
Mm.
Nervous system being safe. I was able to change how I showed up in the world a little bit. But again, this is something that I've actively been working on for the last, 5 or 6 years. The biggest breakthrough that I've had is when I had relationships that I needed space from, that part of the codependency is showing up or being okay in relationship when you're really not. So
Mm.
other people depend on you being okay. And if you're not okay, they're not okay. And they can't not be okay. And so when I just couldn't hold that mask up of being okay and I needed some space, I was met with some resistance, right? Those people didn't want to give me the space that I needed. But I knew over time, and again, this took a while, but for my own mental health, for my own well being, I needed to put myself first. And that was a really foreign concept in
Mm.
those relationships. I had always put myself last in those relationships. And so my role changed and they didn't like that. And so when you actually tell people what you need, right? They're not always going to meet you with open arms. And that's a big piece of all of this. People are going to get angry, they're going to push back. They're not going to hold up your boundaries when you stop providing them, right, what they need. So it's really taken really small steps, baby steps, doing what feels good for me and really stopping worrying about what other people need or want from me and really just honing in on what I need for myself. And so to your point, in my in my energy healing for myself and for my clients, that's a big piece that we work on, right? The emotion code really gets rid of the trapped emotions, releases, the things that you're holding and haven't processed. Body code helps you understand where it is, right? I've had some lower back pain. I've had, a bulge disc at L5, that sacral. That's where I hold a lot of that energy. That repressed trauma energy is in that area. And I didn't know that before. I didn't know why my back hurt. I just knew it hurt. And so it shows you where those things are. It helps you understand the programming. I think you and I actually worked on something where, we had it was like an idea intolerance or something to a specific place. I
yeah.
had, right? I
I don't know that I'll ever go back there.
And, I remember, a couple of years ago, watermelon being an issue for me. Like I would just swell up when I had watermelon. I was like, why the watermelon? And so by utilizing body code, I was able to figure out that, at age 5 or 6, something happened while I was eating watermelon, right? When what we really don't understand about our subconscious is that it's taking in everything that we do all the time. It's the gatekeeper, it's the database. And so even though we don't consciously remember these things, our subconscious does. And that's why the subconscious reprogramming, the belief code, the hypnosis work that you've done, that's why all of those things are super, super important as we go through our healing journey.
Yeah, and what's interesting is you said it without saying it, right? But listening to your pain and to your body and the signals like swelling with watermelon, right? Aren't showing yourself self-love because you're taking care of yourself and your body as opposed to ignoring it.
And just chalking it up to
pushing it down. For me, I certainly view that self-love is the most critical piece of the healing journey because I have to be with myself at all times.
Yes.
Right? My body, how it feels, my mind, how I talk to myself, right? And the decisions that I make. So if I don't enjoy being with me, it's going to be it's going to be tough, right?
Yeah.
But working to get to know yourself and love yourself, as well as taking care of, your body, mind, and spirit, to me, that's got to be the most critical piece in the healing journey.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I'm sure we'll talk about this at another point, but yeah, integrating this holistic concept of healing around the physical body, the spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body, right? The ego, the inner child, they're all important. They all play a role. And quite honestly, I didn't know that before, right? Before I started this journey, I just lived in my head. And whatever my ego, quite honestly, was telling me to do was what I did. And so, yeah, there's so many layers to peel back, and there's so many beautiful experiences that happen along the way, beautiful people to meet. But the core work is really sitting down and learning yourself.
Oh. It's hard to even believe you don't know a person you've been with your entire life.
Your entire life. Yep.
Well, good. I love it. Thank you for today. I think based on our comments today, at some point, we should definitely explore deeper into being an empath.
Yes.
And the ego, because we both went, whoa.
Definitely. I look forward to those conversations.
Thank you so much for today.
Thank you. As we conclude this episode of Healers with Humor, we want to express our deepest gratitude to you, fellow Brightlights. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt exploration. Our journey began with a chance encounter at an expo, two souls seeking healing and connection. Through shared experiences, laughter, and tears, we forged a bond rooted in trust, love, and the relentless pursuit of growth. We invite you to continue this journey with us by sharing your own healing stories and connecting with us. Your presence in our community enriches our collective healing experience, and we're honored to walk alongside you. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll explore topics that resonate with the soul, offering insights, guidance, and inspiration along the way. Until then, remember, you are not alone on your healing journey. Thank you for tuning in, and may your path be illuminated with love, courage, and endless possibilities.